myself again. I'm Dear Kola. I am from the FIP Publications team, and I'm so delighted to speak with you today. Could you please introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah, happy to. So my name is Kristin Xenos. I live in Sydney, Australia, and I'm a pharmacist. Currently, I'm an associate lecturer at the University of Newcastle in Australia, not to be confused with the UK. And I'm a course coordinator for one of the subjects in the new graduate certificate in pharmacist prescribing and advanced practice, which is really exciting. I also am undertaking a PhD in pharmacist prescribing education. I do some assessment work for the Australian Pharmacy Council on the Pharmacy Board for the intern and overseas written exams and oral exams for students. And the other things I do on the side, with my pharmacy hat on, is I'm a co-host of the Purple Pen podcast, which is a pharmacy podcast. It's clinical pharmacy education and continuing professional development. The focus is on Australia, but we have listeners from all over the world, which is pretty exciting. And I still work in community pharmacy. So today I did a whole shift on a Saturday here in Australia in community pharmacy.
Wow.
And I've been working there in community pharmacy since I was 14 years old, and I just can't seem
Hmm.
to let it go.
Wow. You really enjoy community pharmacy, I believe.
I do because one of the things that I think is really that I really appreciate about community pharmacy is that it's really always patient facing. And I find
Mm.
that it really grounds me in my practice, which is really, I think, helps all my other work as well. Because though I've left community pharmacy full time, I still take on casual shifts like today. But as I moved on to other non-clinical roles throughout my career, I found staying clinically connected helped keep all my work relevant because it was
Mm.
grounded in what real life patients need at this point in time. And it also is really good inspiration for Purple Pen podcast episode ideas because
Mm.
I'll have conversations with patients or see new medications that I have to look something up or figure something out I didn't know before. And I think, well, if I had to look it up, chances are somebody else might need to as well. So that often inspires ideas for the podcast.
Wow, that's really, really amazing. And hearing you speak about it sounds like you enjoy pharmacy, you enjoy the profession, and you've been in the profession for a while now. So I'd like to ask,
Yeah.
what made you pursue pharmacy? What sparked
Yeah.
that interest at the beginning? Mhm.
So like I said, I've been working in community pharmacy for since I was 14 years old. So I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to give away my age, but that's a very long time now. But
Yeah.
when I first started working in community pharmacy, I saw how important having an accessible healthcare professional was for the community. Someone to
Mm.
triage issues, provide sensible advice and care, and be that really first point of contact for so many people. And what I think pharmacy does as well is what speaks to me about why I pursue pharmacy and why I enjoy it is across all my roles, I found that what I really enjoy is taking complex clinical concepts and translating them in a very practical, pragmatic, and approachable way. And that comes through with my teaching now, it comes through in my PhD work, comes through on the podcast. Everything I do, I find myself often coming back to taking a bit of a complex clinical concept and how do we break that down to its base parts so it's really accessible for people.
Wow, that's really amazing. I like that you have not only been in one field of pharmacy for so many years, you've been in community, hospital, academia, and I believe some government organizations as
Yeah, yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what motivated each transition from community, hospital, government, and how would you advise early career pharmacists that struggle to choose a path in pharmacy?
Yeah. And I think this is all very easy to say with the benefit of
Hmm.
hindsight. I'll just say that in advance because it sounds like you can sound very wise and reflective down the track, but I know
Yeah.
that when you're in the midst of it, it feels very different. And something I'll
Mm,
say as well first is sometimes you don't always choose a path, it chooses you. And I think just having that in mind is really important and also makes it feel maybe less stressful. So, I mean, when
mm,
I moved from community pharmacy to hospital pharmacy was my first transition. And that I didn't really choose that in a sense that where the community pharmacy I was working in, there were some uh, some staffing changes and there wasn't a position for me anymore. So I had the opportunity after the owner of the pharmacy said that in a certain amount of time I would have to move on. I thought to myself, well, what have I always been interested in? And
mm,
what can I do next? And hospital, I was really inspired by being exposed to some amazing clinicians who made working in pharmacy sound really rewarding. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do it ever, I should do it now, or I will never do it. And the
mm,
opportunity to interact with clinicians from many different disciplines on a daily basis and be there for patients when the stakes are really high for them, I found really rewarding work and enjoyable work. So that was kind of my first transition from community to hospital, and that was a huge transition. But I think being a community pharmacist first made me a better hospital pharmacist because I was able to
mm,
appreciate the spectrum and the journey that a patient goes on a little bit better. And it also made me a better community pharmacist because time and time again, I find myself working in community pharmacy where a patient might be discharged from hospital or have run out of a very, specialized medicine and needs help. And I have the experience to know who to ring, how to contact people that need to be contacted that your average community pharmacist might not have because they've never worked in that environment. So
mm,
that was the kind of first transition. So I would say my advice from that learning was when an opportunity comes to you, sometimes beyond your choosing. So I didn't, necessarily choose to leave community pharmacy. I was told that I kind of had to find a new job. I thought, well, now's a good opportunity to take a step towards something I've always been interested in. So taking that opportunity to try something new, especially when you're early in your career, trying lots of different things to see what you might learn, what you might like, because sometimes we build up an idea in our head of, oh, I wouldn't like that work. I don't want to do that. And I did that as well. He said, I don't like research. I don't want to do research. And now I'm doing a PhD. So I think we kind of put these ideas in our head without actually ever having tested them first.
mm.
So I think that keeping an open mind, you'll hear that it's a bit of a cliche, but I think it's really true. You've got to keep an open mind.
Wow, that's really amazing. I love that you said the path chooses you. So that reduces the pressure that
Yeah.
early career pharmacists have to go through because there are so many aspects of pharmacy, so many paths, so many branches, and you just wonder which should I go for. So I loved that you've had experiences in over like five different fields, and I love that you have positive things to say about each of the field.
Yeah. And not every experience was rosy all the time, but everything taught me
Mm,
something. It was either, oh, that's right. I don't really like doing that kind of work, or I didn't really enjoy that, or I had a bit of a challenging scenario with that
mhm.
particular situation, but it taught me something about myself and it taught me something about that particular environment as well.
Wow, that's really nice. I'm really learning a lot from you and from this session because early career pharmacists, especially all over the world, just have this pressure. So hearing you say you learned at each stage is very, very impressive. Thank you so much. So moving on to your career progression, what would you say really helped you in your progression? Did you have any mentors? Did you have people you looked up to? If you did, how did they influence your career and the development going forward?
Yeah, I think having mentors is invaluable. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been lucky enough in my career to have met some really nurturing people along the way. So I think the first person who steps out, in my mind was Tony Lai, who was an antimicrobial stewardship pharmacist when I worked in hospital pharmacy, created a lot of space for me to learn and develop my skills. And at the
Mm.
Commission, when I worked at the Australian Commission on Safety and Quality in Healthcare, which was my first government role, lots of new things to learn there as well, because I'd never not worked in a patient-facing role before. So that was very different. And I was really lucky there that I had some managers who believed in me, had a lot of patience, helped me develop the skills I need. And now I've got, PhD supervisors like Associate Professor Sarah Deneen Griffin, who again creates a lot of space for me to learn and gives me new opportunities. But saying all that, I know and acknowledge that actually that comes down to luck and privilege, because you're not always
Mm.
guaranteed to have amazing mentors that fall into your lap. Sometimes people don't really perceive it as their role to be a mentor to you. So I would say if that doesn't happen for you and you don't happen to find amazing mentors, along the way, then you can seek them out. Don't be shy about that and go into communities like FIP or LinkedIn or wherever it is and try and find someone who motivates you or challenges you or supports you. And that can be more than one person for different things. You don't have to find one mythical mentor who can do all those things. Sometimes you need a bit of a different perspective for whatever phase of your career you're at. And mentors don't always have to be professors. They can be your peers who are maybe have a different perspective than you or a little bit more experience than you. I think of even the co-hosts of my podcast are sometimes my mentors as well, because I learn
Wow.
from them. I can debrief with them when I have something on my mind or I want their opinion of something. They're kind of mentors in a way as well. So don't have a really a set idea in your head of what a mentor should look like. They can look like many different things and help you achieve many different skills.
Wow. I like that you said your mentor should not always be a professor. It could be your peers. I believe that is a common misconception where people
Yeah.
think, oh, my
I
mentor
think
has to
everybody
be
has,
a professor.
has to be a wise professor in a chair
Yeah.
who's, like got a lot of sage things to say. And sometimes they are.
Yeah.
But sometimes, the practical advice is something you need, and sometimes it's more, abstract advice, life advice. So it's, different things you can need different things at different times.
Times, exactly. Wow. So what would you say was one decision you made early on in your career that has caused significant change in your career till today?
I would have to say, when I think about it and I look back at it, it's really leaving community pharmacy from the first
Mm.
go to explore a broader world of pharmacy. And some people call it like portfolio careers, and I think that's pretty true for me. Um, you know, I feel like that really changed the game. And whilst I still do it, it's not in community pharmacy. It's not it wasn't my whole world for forever. And I think leaning into what interests you. So when I left community pharmacy for hospital pharmacy, I observed an interest in infectious diseases and antimicrobials. And I think recognizing that, then seeking opportunities as an AMS
Mm.
pharmacist really
Yeah.
set me on a career trajectory, because if I hadn't had that experience, then I wouldn't have gotten the antimicrobial stewardship role at working at the commission in the government world. And that in turn helped facilitate my job that I got with working with Sarah Deneen Griffin with the community pharmacy prescribing trials, because I had all that expertise. So I think if you follow your curiosity,
Yeah.
um, that will be a good North Star, because I think the people that make the biggest impact are chasing the thing that lights them up, that makes them really passionate, that excites them, that interests them, that keeps them curious. And I think if you are reflective about what that is in you that really gets you engaged and excited, then you'll find the passion and the work will feel really engaging and that will shine through with what you're doing.
Mm. You said you took hold of so many opportunities in the hospital phase, which allowed you transition properly in your government roles. So how do you think early career pharmacists can choose these development opportunities without feeling overwhelmed? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming. So how would you advise?
100%.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's a very accurate observation, dear caller, because it is very overwhelming because there are so many
Mm,
choices, so many avenues. You think, do I need to do a degree in digital health or public health or this or
mm,
that? There are so many paths you can go down, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself to say, should I become accredited to do home medicine reviews? Should I work in aged care facilities? So many choices, which is amazing, but sometimes choice is overwhelming as well. So I would say don't put pressure on yourself to have it happen all at once. I think early career pharmacists put a lot of pressure on themselves because they think it all has to happen yesterday. I have to be as skilled as I possibly can be as soon as possible. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the way. Hopefully, your career is going to be very long, and we have lifelong learning, and you don't have to do it all at once. Um, there's a theory called happenstance theory, and I think what it essentially boils down to is things unfold when they're meant to. So if
mm,
you take the pressure off. You can say yes to anything, but not everything all at the same time. You have to think about opportunity cost. You have to think about physical cost as well. It can be
true.
expensive, and your
Yeah.
mental health. Often people have very rich lives beyond pharmacy. They might have families, they might have caring responsibilities. So I
Mm,
think making sure you don't overcommit too early and just trust that taking on a little chunk here and there and chipping away at it over time is okay. You don't have to do it all at once. I started my PhD when I was 35 and
mm,
it's a long career and hopefully I'm working for another 30 odd years. It's not time wasted. All that
mm.
experience that I've gained in other roles has helped me to be where I need to be right now.
Wow, that's amazing. I just learned to take things one step at a time. No need to rush, no pressure, and I should
Yeah, I mean
learn as
it's easier said
easier
than
said.
done, but I
Exactly.
think if you just remind yourself what am I trying to achieve? What's the goal
Mm,
here? And where do I want to get to in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, and what's my plan to get there? I think it helps take the pressure off a little bit.
yeah, definitely. So, what would you say were some challenges earlier on in your career?
There's challenges early on, and I still find challenges in my
Right
roles.
now, wow.
So, I mean, early in my career, I think the things that really rattled me were getting no's. I got lots of no's.
Mm,
I didn't get accepted into honours year projects in my Bachelor of Pharmacy degree. I didn't get an intern position in hospital pharmacy, and that really knocked my confidence as well. But I got there in the end. I got a great job in hospital pharmacy, and I was a great hospital pharmacist, despite not having done my intern year there. But if I had let that define me and said, oh, well, they didn't want me as an intern, I'll never be a hospital pharmacist, then that would have been me getting in my own way. So I think not getting one opportunity doesn't mean no forever, only if you let it. It can just be no
true.
right now. And the other challenge that comes to mind is I think sometimes there's a lot of uncertainty that you just have to get comfortable with.
Mm,
Sometimes opportunities are going to be not ongoing positions. There might be a 1 year contract, a 2 year contract, and that can feel a bit stressful when you've got responsibilities and families. But, like I said before, my move out of community pharmacy was caused by staffing changes. And initially I had a lot of anxiety about that because we were looking to buy a house and have next steps of our life. But essentially, I look back on it as a blessing because it was a huge catalyst in my career because I moved on into hospital pharmacy. Meeting people in hospital pharmacy was how I was asked to become a co-host of the podcast, which has grown and grown and grown. So I think things just kind of have a way of unfolding if you don't let the fear cripple you too much. The fear is always going to be there. I mean, people say, don't be afraid. Well, I think sometimes fear and anxiety is just, you know, cost of doing business. You have to accept it's going to be there a little bit, but how much are you going to let it rule your decisions is what you have to try and
Mm,
control.
yeah. You said we have to learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. I believe that is easier said than done. But
A
how, what
hundred
are
percent. It's something I'm still working on.
working on? I wanted to ask
Yeah.
how you navigate that. How do you get comfortable with uncertainties? And how do
I
you
think
feel
I think
okay?
the hard thing about uncertainty is that every new exciting thing you're going to learn is a learning
Mm,
process and you're not going to be good at it right away. When I first started my PhD, there was a lot of uncertainty, things I didn't know. I felt so anxious. Did I
yeah.
make the right choice? And it just I just kind of what took me getting out of my own way was remembering that in any new job I've had that feeling for about 4 to 6 months of, oh, I don't know anything. I'm not good at this. I'm not a good pharmacist. They're gonna say this, they're gonna say that. And nobody ever does, dear. Like to me, nobody ever did. It was all, I had such high standards of myself that I think that was a lot of me creating stories in my own mind and that fear and anxiety driving that. So I think, trying to just say to yourself, what, and be gentle with yourself. I'm still learning. That's okay. That's a learning for next time. And I'm getting more comfort in the uncertainty space.
Wow. That's really, really encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing your struggles. So I'd like to ask you, what really excites you the most about pharmacy? Pharmacy in general, what excites you the most?
I think one of the things that's really exciting right now is when I reflect back on the profession and where it was
Mm,
at and the mood maybe about 10 years ago,
yeah.
you would hear a lot of people saying, really negative things about pharmacy. You would hear them say, "Oh, it's time to get out of the profession. There's no future."
Mm,
People were being really negative. But I think more and more, especially over the last 10 years, I would say there's been increasing recognition of the value we can contribute to patients and the healthcare system. And that recognition has really come from pharmacy, yes, but from beyond pharmacy, from government, from other backgrounds, from other health professions. And you see that in the roles that we see pharmacists keep popping up in, they keep diversifying. So when I
yeah,
first started my degree, you either went into community, you went into hospital, or you went into industry. And now it's so much choice. You can do digital health, you can do vaccination, you
yeah.
can do aged care. And when I worked at the commission, it was interesting because it was a time where one of the managers said to me, gee, pharmacists have a very good skill set for lots of work in health. That's, that their very systematic way of thinking translates
Sure.
really well to so many other fields, whether that's digital health or data analysis.
Mm,
That skill set is really transferable. And I think a lot of people have woken up to that because you see pharmacists in roles everywhere. I mean, there's people who have gotten, colleagues of mine who have gotten roles in risk management that has got nothing to do with
oh,
pharmacy, but their skill set really translated. And one of the other things that's really exciting is how I see pharmacists contributing to public health education. So that could
mm,
be through podcasts like our podcast, the Purple Pen podcast, or you see it in social media as well. So, and other organizations like the WHO FIDES organization, lots of pharmacists getting on social media and trying to increase health literacy, increase learning amongst pharmacists as well. And that I think is really fantastic because it's embracing where technology is at. And I think that next generation's really going to shape how our profession communicates with the world. So I think that's a really exciting time for pharmacy right now because the scope keeps expanding in different countries, in different contexts. So I think that's a really good thing and something that should be um, exciting to a lot of people because there's lots of opportunities. And I think the skills that we learn as pharmacists really are transferable because if you think beyond clinical knowledge, you know, communication skills, navigating uncertainty, thinking creatively, you kind of learn these as pharmacists, but these
Mm,
skills can be built beyond traditional pharmacy settings. And when you get the opportunity to do them, it sets you apart and it opens doors. So I think I would really encourage early career pharmacists to engage with emerging technologies. And that might be like a community of practice or discussion groups or working groups or organizations like the Early Career Pharmacist group within FIP or, listen to a podcast. Might be mine, might be somebody else's. Just try and open your ears to the conversations and the rooms that you could be in and the voices you could hear because you're going to learn a lot.
true. It's so amazing to see how pharmacy has transitioned. Like you said, community hospital were the traditional roles. Now there are so many roles, digital health. I never knew a pharmacist could work in risk management. I
Yeah.
just learned that digital health, data analysis, WHO, UNICEF, and so many more. So thank you so much for sharing that. And it has been lovely speaking with you. So, lastly, I'd like to ask your advice for early career pharmacists. What would you
My
like us,
advice. Whew.
yeah, what would you like us to take from your experiences?
I think keeping a sense of curiosity is
Mm,
really a good a good mentality to try and hold on to throughout your career because when you stay curious, you stay current, which is really
mm,
important, especially in a profession like pharmacy, and you don't close your mind off. I think when you get that kind of defensive mentality of everything's too much and I don't want to learn anything new and I just want to stay in my little bubble and I don't want anyone to bother me, then it becomes you really kind of close off the opportunities to you. So I think stay curious, embrace the opportunities that come along the way as they unfold for you, because there's could be lots of opportunities that come along the way. And I think if you have a rigid mindset about this is my 5-year plan and this is what I'm sticking to, then you might not anticipate the amazing opportunity that comes along the way. So I think say yes if you have the capacity to, because not every opportunity might be perfect, but it's going to add to your experience and make you a better pharmacist. And try and embrace the unknown. You don't have to know everything before you begin. You can learn
mm,
by doing it. You trust that the person offering you that opportunity believes in you because imposter syndrome is very common. But when you feel it, just acknowledge it, be kind to yourself. When I was originally offered my PhD and the research work, I said, "Oh no, I couldn't do that. No, thank you." And I was really lucky that Sarah said to me, "Just take the weekend and think about it," because her doing that gave me time to pause and reflect as to why I was saying no. And I was saying no because I was afraid, because I was happy where I was because I didn't want to try anything new, because I didn't want to rock the boat. And if I had said no, I would have closed off so many opportunities that have unfolded from that one yes. So I think keep open to opportunities would be my other piece of advice for early career
mm.
pharmacists.
Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from today. And my take home would be to be curious and to be less rigid in my plans so I get more open to opportunities. Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking with you today.
I have actually a question about your Purple Pen podcast, Kristin, because I see that you have an amazing podcast. I want to highlight it for us early career pharmacists that we can always listen because I work in settings, and it's so good to listen like professors coming there and talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
indications. Could you explain a little bit how your journey started and why you started this journey?
So for the podcast, I was actually asked to join by, it was already an established podcast created by two hospital pharmacists, Dan and Jane. And they just found that it was a lot of work. So they were looking for a third host to come and share the workload. So again, at first, when they first asked me, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about podcasting. What is even podcasting? And um, luckily, I said yes. And I learned so much. I learnt about technical skills, like how to record and the equipment and the mixing. And I learnt about how to build a website and how to release podcasts and do all that kind of behind the scenes stuff. But I also thought I learnt about how to choose a good guest because sometimes I pick the guest first and sometimes I pick the topic first. And we're very cautious about who we ask to speak on the podcast. We have the trust of our listeners, and that's so important to us. I never want them to feel like we have an agenda or think that it's not a place of curiosity we're coming from, that it's not evidence-based or that we have ulterior motives. It's never like, oh, this was sponsored by X cream. It's not like that. And it's always about what's this topic? And it's always driven about curiosity. So when I came back from maternity leave, I picked up a box of guafenicin and I said, what the hell is this? A new drug. And I looked it up and I said, oh, there's a whole new set of drugs for attention deficit disorder that I know nothing about. And I thought to myself, I can either feel bad about this that I didn't know, or I can say, hey, if I didn't know, I bet you lots of other pharmacists like me don't know. And that inspired the episode on latest developments in ADHD medications. And I did some researching and I found somebody who was a expert clinician in that area and he agreed to come and speak to us. And all the people that speak on the podcast do it from their own free time, don't charge anything, and they're just happy to share learnings and knowledge. So, which is really wonderful. And sometimes the suggestions for topic ideas come from the listeners. So they might email us and say, hey, we really would like to learn more about all that's changing in whatever it is, like psoriasis. So I would, find a dermatologist who could speak about the latest developments there. And for me, it's a selfish reason. When I do my auditing for my continuing professional development points to keep my registration, it's very easy for me to keep track of all the learnings I've done because I look at the podcast and I said, well, there you go. I've made 12 podcasts this year and that's my clinical learnings. So I think having those resources and my personality is when I learn something, I really want to share it with others. I want to make it better and help the profession grow and learn. So that's what motivates me to keep on going with the podcast. This is the 10th year we've been doing it, and we get so much wonderful feedback from the listeners about how much they value it and how much they learn from it. So that kind of keeps me motivated to keep doing it and keep producing them.
It sounds lovely, lovely to hear it. I'm so
Yeah.
happy. I have no other questions. I'm so happy that you have been here with us and you gave your time to Early Career Pharmacist. We really admire it.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, dear caller. Thank you, Dilbo. I really enjoyed the conversation.